South African ex-president Jacob Zuma denounces ANC pledges to vote for a new party. Chileans vote not to replace Pinochet-era constitution, and North Korea fires a most powerful long-range missile after South Korea-US meeting. Thanks once again for joining us on the News Tidbit. Now, Chadians have participated in a crucial referendum marked by both calls for mass participation and widespread controversy. The referendum is intended to decide on a new constitution, seen as a crucial step towards holding elections and restoring civilian rule, a promise made 2.5 years ago by the military junta, but delayed until late 2024. Despite the controversy, the yes vote appears to be in favor, but the military power has orchestrated a well-funded campaign and has secured the support of one of its main opponents, who is advocating for a yes vote. This endorsement comes at a time when the opposition is visibly divided and has faced a severe repression for over a year in Chad, which is ranked as the second least developed country in the world, according to the United Nations. Voting commenced as polling stations opened and the counting process initiated after closure, while some stations extended the voting time beyond the announced hour. Official provisional results are anticipated to be announced on December 24, with the Supreme Court tasked with validating the outcome of the December elections. Now, former President Jacob Zuma has denounced the governing African National Congress Party and announced that he would vote for a newly formed political formation in South Africa's general election next year. Zuma, who was president of the ANC from 2007 to 2017, said he is backing the newly formed Umkhonto we Sizwe party that is named after the ANC's now defunct military wing, which was disbanded after the liberation struggle. Zuma, 81, called on other South Africans to vote for the new formation, saying it would be a betrayal to vote for the ANC of President Cyril Ramaphosa. The country's general election, scheduled for 2024, is expected to be highly contested by the ruling ANC, which has governed the country since Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first democratically elected leader in 1994, faces a myriad of challenges. Zuma was ousted as the country's president by Ramaphosa in 2018 amid wide-ranging allegations of corruption in government and state-owned companies during his presidential tenure from 2009 to 2018. Now, President Andry Rajoelina has taken an oath in a packed stadium to start a new term as Madagascar's leader, rebuffing an opposition boycott and international concerns over the island's future. In front of 6 African presidents in the crowd of 50,000 and 49-year-old, the 49-year-old party organizer turned politician vowed to act with integrity to lift the country of 29 million out of its poverty. But the absence of 2 former presidents, Marc Ravalomanana and Harry Rajaonarimampianina, who attended Rajoelina's last inauguration in 2018, highlighted early tensions facing the new administration. They are part of an opposition coalition that held near daily protest for weeks before the November 16 vote to denounce a constitutional coup d'etat by the president to stay in office. Rajoelina, who became president a first time without an election in 2009 after Ravalomanana was ousted in a military mutiny, has quickly faced international pressure. U.S. President Joe Biden was rushed into a car after witnessing a vehicle crash into a Secret Service vehicle guarding his motorcade in Delaware. The president and his wife, Jill Biden, were leaving his campaign headquarters after a meal with members of his re-election team. Secret Service spokesperson Special Agent Steve Kopech said in a statement that there was no protective interest associated with this event and the president's motorcade departed without incident. However, the Wilmington Police Department said in a statement that it was investigating the motor vehicle collision, which did not result in any injuries. Flash floods in North Queensland have led to an entire town being evacuated and people trapped on a hospital roof. Thousands have been evacuated and others remain stranded, as authorities said it is Australian region's worst ever flood. Hundreds of people have been rescued with many homes inundated, power and roads cut off, and safe drinking water dwindling. The city of Cairns has received more than 2 million of rainfall since the weather event began. Queensland Premier Steve Miles told reporters that the natural disaster was about the worst to remember. He said the immediate concern was getting those trapped in rising waters to safety, like those in the remote town of Wujal, about 175 kilometers north of Cairns. Miles added that 9 people, including a sick child, spent the night on the roof of the hospital after emergency crews were unable to reach them, but were relocated to another spot as planned evacuation had to be called off due to bad weather, and that another attempt will be made on Tuesday. Now, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has claimed a victory in a snap parliamentary elections, saying his party is heading for an absolute majority. According to the projections, his Serbian Progressive Party, SNS, is set to win almost 47% of the vote, while opposition parties under Serbia Against Violence banner were well behind with to 23.1%. The biggest hope is in challenging the president's party in Belgrade's local elections. Results from Serbia: 8,273 polling stations confirmed the ruling party's lead, although projections in the capital itself gave it a far narrow margin of victory of 4 points. Mr. Vučić declared that his Serbia must not stop election list was heading for 127 seats in the 250-seat National Assembly. The SNS has been in power since 2012, but there have been 3 elections in the past 3 years. But voting for parliament, Serbians were deciding who would control 65 local authorities. The loose opposition Serbia Against the Violence Alliance was formed after 2 mass shootings in May, which sparked huge protests. Now, 14 people have been killed after a storm brought heavy rain and winds of 150 km high to eastern Argentina. The storm hit the port city of Bahia Blanca, around 570 kilometers south of Buenos Aires, damaging buildings and causing power outages before moving towards the capital. It comes just as a week after new President Javier Milei resumed office. Officials said after landing in Bahia Blanca, the storm caused a part of the roof of a sports center to collapse during a roller skating competition, killing about 13 people as another 2 people were killed in neighboring Uruguay. A further 14 people were injured, and firefighters at the scene had to work to free people trapped beneath the rubble. Meanwhile, an orange weather alert indicating a threat to life and property was in force in parts of Buenos Aires province. Chileans have rejected a new constitution proposed by conservative delegates that would have affected laws in areas including abortion access, the ability to strike, and rights for indigenous people. people. The new charter would have replaced the current one written during the military regime of Gen Austin Pinochet. Efforts to replace Chile's existing constitution adopted in 1980 under the Pinochet dictatorship began in 2019 following anti-government demonstrations. The first draft, written by a body of 155 elected members, proposed reforms to Chile's Senate, as well as a formal recognition of the country's indigenous groups, but was rejected by 62% of voters in September last year. The version voted referendum was written by a new body of 51 elected representatives, 23 of whom were from the right-wing Republican Party. Chilean President Gabriel Boric, who backed the first draft but remained neutral on the second, said ahead of the vote that it would be the last attempt at constitutional reform. Now, pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai has gone on trial in Hong Kong on charges of breaching national security and colluding with region forces. Lai, 76, denies all the charges but was jailed since December 2020, life in prison if he is found guilty. The self-made millionaire was arrested under a security law which China is accused of using to crush dissent. The landmark trial, delayed for a year, is expected to last for about 80 days. Beijing, which introduced the NSL in 2020 in response to massive pro-democracy protests, insists the law is necessary to quell unrest. Lai's international legal team said Beijing had barred him from appointing a UK lawyer, and he is being tried by 3 judges handpicked by Hong Kong leaders. The US and UK have called for Lai, who holds Chinese and British citizenship, to be released. Now, South Korea authorities say North Korea has fired most of its advanced long-range missile, defying United Nations curbs. The launch of the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile (ICBM) drew immediate condemnation from the West and landed west of Hokkaido in Japan. It comes after South Korea and U.S. defense officials met last week to update plans on how to respond to a nuclear attack from the north. The isolated state launched the long range from the Pyongyang area. South Korea and Japanese officials said the missile traveled for 73 minutes, covering about 1,000 kilometers. ICBMs have the range to reach the North American continent, as the launch is North Korea's 5th successful launch of an ICBM this year. Tensions between the North and the South flared last month when Pyongyang successfully launched a spy satellite into orbit, also in violation of UN sanctions. South Korea national security officials confirmed the ICBM launch was a solid fuel missile. That's the foreign tidbits, but just before we go, let's take a look at some of the highlights. The South African ex-president Jacob Zuma has announced ANC and pledged to vote for the new party, and Chileans have voted not to replace Pinochet-era constitution. We'd also reported that North Korea has fired the most powerful long-range missile after South Korea-US meeting. That's foreign tidbits as compiled and produced by Patience Fobara. There'll be more reports at 3, 7:30. Join us then.